mail-order bride came back to the depot until a cowboy lifted her trunk and claimed her as wife. In the dry and dusty town of Red Hollow, people liked things simple. They woke up early, worked hard, and followed the same routine every day. Nothing much changed there, and most folks were happy to keep it that way. Except for her. Everyone in town knew her name, even if they didn't always say it kindly. May Turner. But most people didn't call her May. They called her Wild May. She lived on the edge of town, where the wooden houses turned into open land. Her small ranch was not fancy, but it was strong, just like her. The fence was not perfect, but it stood tall. The horses were not gentle, but they listened to her. May was different from the others. She did not wear pretty dresses or sit quietly like the town expected. She wore boots covered in dust, rode her horse fast across the fields, and spoke only when she had something real to say. Some people said she was too proud. Others said she was too stubborn. But the truth was simple. May just did not like being told what to do. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, she was already awake. She would tie and step outside into the cool air. Her horse, a strong brown mare named Dusty, would be waiting. "Morning, girl," May would say softly, giving her a gentle pat. Dusty trusted her. That was something May valued more than anything. Trust. Not many people in Red Hollow gave her that, but her horse always did. As the sun climbed higher, May would ride out, checking her land, fixing broken wood, and making sure everything was in place. She worked alone, and she liked it that way. In town, people talked. "She should learn to settle down," one woman would say. "No man will ever handle her," another would reply. May had heard it all before. It didn't bother her anymore, or at least, that's what she told herself. One afternoon, she rode into town to pick up supplies. The streets were quiet, just like always. A few people stood outside the general store, watching her as she arrived. She noticed their looks, but she didn't stop. She tied Dusty outside and walked inside the store. "Afternoon," the shopkeeper said, a little unsure. May nodded. "Need some feed and nails." She spoke clearly and calmly, but there was always a distance in her voice, like she had built a wall no one could cross. As she gathered her things, she felt it, that quiet shift in the air. Something was different. Outside, a new horse had arrived. May stepped out of the store, carrying her supplies. Her eyes moved across the street and stopped. A man sat on a tall black horse. He was not dressed like the others. His clothes were simple but clean. His posture was relaxed, yet strong. He did not look around nervously like a stranger. Instead, he sat there as if he belonged. But what caught May's attention most was his calm. The townspeople were watching him, whispering like they always did with someone new. But he did not seem to care. Then, slowly, his eyes met hers. Most people looked away from May after a second. Some looked with judgment, some with curiosity. But this man? He held her gaze, steady and quiet. Not challenging, not afraid, just present. May frowned slightly, not used to that kind of look. She walked to Dusty and began tying her supplies. She could still feel his eyes, but she refused to react. The man finally spoke, his voice low and easy. "Nice horse." May paused for a moment, then replied without turning. "She does her job." There was a short silence. Then he said, "Looks like she trusts you." May turned this time, just a little. "She does." Again, that quiet moment passed between them. The man gave a small smile, not big, not bold, just enough to show he meant it. "Not easy to earn that," he said. May studied him carefully now. Something about him was different. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to control the moment. He was just standing there. "I don't hand it out easy," she replied. "I can tell." There was no argument in his voice, no teasing, just simple truth. May didn't know what to make of that. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel judged. She didn't feel pushed. She felt seen. And she wasn't sure if she liked that. Without another word, she climbed onto Dusty and turned away. The town watched, as always, but this time, May's thoughts were not on the whispers or the stares. They were on the quiet cowboy with the steady eyes. And as she rode back toward the open land, one question stayed in her mind. Why didn't he look at her like everyone else did? Back in Red Hollow, the man remained where he was, watching the dust settle behind her. He tipped his hat slightly, almost to himself, and said in a calm voice, "This town just got a little more interesting." And without knowing it, May Turner's quiet, independent life had just begun to change. Part 2. The Cowboy Who Didn't Flinch. The next morning in Red Hollow felt the same as always, quiet, slow, and predictable. But for May Turner, something was different. She woke up before sunrise, just like every day, but her mind was not as calm as usual. As she stepped outside and saw Dusty waiting, she paused for a moment. That stranger. His steady eyes, his calm voice. It stayed with her. May shook her head slightly, brushing the thought away. "Doesn't matter," she muttered. "Just another passerby." She went on with her work, riding across her land, fixing a loose fence and checking on her horses. Everything was normal, but still, something felt different. Back in town, the stranger had already made his presence known. His name was Eli Carter. No one knew much about him. He didn't talk too much, but when he did, his words were simple and clear. He had started helping around the town without being asked, fixing a broken wagon, helping an old man carry supplies, and even calming a nervous horse outside the saloon. People noticed. "He's not like the others," one man said. "Too calm," another replied. "And did you see how he looked at May?" someone whispered. That part interested everyone, because no one looked at Wild May like that. Later that day, May rode into town again. She didn't plan to stay long, just quick work and back home. But as soon as she arrived, she felt it again. Eyes watching, whispers moving. She ignored them, like always. But then she saw him. Eli was standing near the stable, gently brushing a horse that didn't belong to him. The animal stood calm, almost relaxed, as if it trusted him already. May slowed her horse. "That horse kicks," she said, her voice firm. "People don't go near him." Eli didn't turn right away. He finished his slow movement, then looked at her. "Maybe he just doesn't like how people go near him," Eli replied. May raised an eyebrow. "Or maybe he just doesn't like people." Eli gave a small smile. "Same thing sometimes." That answer caught her off guard. May stepped down from Dusty, keeping her eyes on him. "You talk like you understand animals." Eli shrugged lightly. "I try to understand everything before I judge it." May crossed her arms slightly. "That's so." He nodded. "Makes life easier." There was no pride in his voice, no need to prove himself. That was new. May watched him for a moment, thinking. Most men in town either tried to challenge her or avoid her. They spoke loudly, acted tough, or stayed far away. But this man? He stood still, calm, like he had nothing to prove. It made May uncomfortable, but also curious. "You always this quiet?" she asked. "Only when there's nothing important to say," Eli answered. "And now?" Eli looked at her directly. "Now I'm talking to you." May felt something shift inside her. She didn't show it, but she felt it. She looked away for a second, then back again. "People here like to talk. You'll hear things." "I already have," Eli said. "And you still standing here?" He nodded. "Seems like a good place to stand." May almost smiled, but stopped herself. The air between them was calm, but strong, like two people testing the space without pushing too far. May decided to push just a little. You think you understand me too? She asked, her tone a bit sharper. Eli didn't react to the edge in her voice. Not yet. Then don't act like you do. I'm not, he said simply. I'm just not scared of what I don't understand. That hit differently. May was used to people being unsure around her, afraid even, but Eli spoke like there was nothing to fear. She walked closer now, stopping just a few steps away from him. You should be, she said quietly. People don't call me wild for no reason. Eli looked at her. Not with fear, not with challenge, just calm. Maybe they just don't know what they're looking at, he said. May stared at him, trying to read his face. Or maybe, he added, they see something strong and don't know how to handle it. The words were simple, but they stayed. May felt her guard rise again. She wasn't used to this kind of talk, not soft, not kind, just honest. You talk too much for a quiet man, she said. Eli smiled a little. Only when it matters. There was a pause. The town seemed to fade around them for a moment. No whispers, no noise, just stillness. May took a slow breath. You won't last long here, she said finally. This town doesn't like different. Eli glanced around, then back at her. Seems like it already has someone different. May narrowed her eyes slightly. That someone didn't choose it. Maybe not, Eli said, but she didn't run from it either. That was true. May had never run. She turned away then, walking back to Dusty. For a second, it felt like the moment would end like all the others in her life. Quiet, distant, unfinished. But then, Eli spoke again. You don't need fixing, he said, his voice calm but clear. May stopped. You'll match me just fine. Those words landed deeper than anything else he had said. May didn't turn around right away. She stood there, holding the moment. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever looked at her and seen something that didn't need to be changed. Slowly, she climbed onto Dusty. This time, when she looked back, her expression was not as hard as before. Still strong, still guarded, but different. Don't get ahead of yourself, she said. Eli nodded slightly. Wouldn't dream of it. As May rode away, her heart felt unfamiliar, like something had shifted just a little. And back in town, Eli watched her go, just like before. Calm, steady. But this time, there was something more in his eyes. Not curiosity, understanding. And for the first time in Red Hollow, someone wasn't trying to tame the wild. They were ready to ride beside it. Part 3. A partnership no one expected. The days after that meeting did not feel the same in Red Hollow. People still followed their routines. The sun still rose over the dry land. The wind still carried dust through the streets. But something had quietly changed, and everyone could feel it. May tried to ignore it at first. She stayed on her ranch, working like always, fixing fences, feeding the horses, riding across the open land. She told herself nothing was different, but her thoughts kept going back to him. Eli Carter, his calm voice, his steady eyes, and those words. You'll match me just fine. May didn't understand why they stayed with her. She had heard many things in her life, but never something like that. Not something that didn't try to change her. A few days later, she had to return to town again. Supplies were low, and there was no avoiding it. As she rode in, she noticed something right away. The town was busy near the old well. A group of people stood around, talking loudly. A cart was stuck near the side, one wheel bent and uneven. May slowed Dusty and watched. Then she saw him. Eli was there, kneeling beside the broken wheel, checking it carefully. The man who owned the cart looked worried, speaking quickly, but Eli stayed calm. It won't roll like this, the man said. I need it fixed today. Eli nodded. It can be fixed. You sure? Eli looked up. Yes. No rush, No stress, just quiet confidence. May stepped closer, curious. "You fixing wheels now?" she asked. Eli glanced at her and gave a small nod. "Today, yes." May looked at the damage. "Wood split. That won't hold easy." Eli stood up slowly. "Not if you rush it." May crossed her arms. "And you won't?" "No." There it was again, that calm answer. May hesitated, then spoke. "You'll need support under it." Eli nodded. "I know." She raised an eyebrow. "Then why haven't you done it yet?" Eli looked at her. "Waiting for the right piece." May paused, then turned and walked toward a nearby pile of wood. The townspeople watched in silence. Wild May? Helping? She picked up a strong piece and tossed it near him. "This'll work." Eli looked at it, then at her. "Yeah, it will." No surprise in his voice, no praise either, just agreement. They worked side by side. At first it was quiet. May held the wheels steady while Eli adjusted the support. He didn't tell her what to do. She didn't ask. They simply worked. And somehow, it fit. "Lift a little," Eli said. May did. "Hold there." She held it steady. A few minutes later, the wheel was back in place. The man who owned the cart smiled wide. "That's good work. Thank you." Eli nodded. May stepped back. The crowd slowly started talking again, but this time, the whispers were different. "Did you see that? They worked together. That's new." May brushed her hands off and turned to leave. "You didn't have to help," Eli said. She paused. "I know." "Then why did you?" May looked at him for a moment. "Didn't look like you needed help." Eli tilted his head slightly. "But you helped anyway." May gave a small shrug. "Didn't say I wouldn't." That was her way of answering. They stood there for a second. The space between them felt easier now, less sharp, less guarded. "You always do things slow?" May asked. Eli smiled faintly. "I do things right." May almost laughed but stopped herself. "People here won't wait for slow," she said. "Then they'll learn," Eli replied. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. May started coming into town more often. At first, it was small reasons. Then, no real reason at all. And somehow, Eli was always nearby, sometimes fixing things, sometimes helping someone, sometimes just standing, watching the quiet life of the town, and sometimes talking to her. They began to understand each other, not through long speeches, not through big moments, but through simple things, working side by side, sharing short conversations, respecting silence. May noticed something important. Eli never tried to lead her. He walked beside her. One afternoon, they rode out together beyond the town. The land was wide and open, the wind soft and steady. May rode ahead at first, testing him. Eli didn't rush. He followed at his own pace. After a while, she slowed down. "You keeping up?" she called back. Eli nodded. "I am." "You sure?" "I don't need to be ahead." May looked at him, slightly surprised. Most people tried to race her, to prove something, but not him. They stopped near a quiet hill. May looked out over the land. "People think this place is small." Eli stood beside her. "It's only small if you don't see it right." May glanced at him. "And you do?" "I try to." There was a calm silence again, but this time it felt comfortable. May took a deep breath. "You're different," she said. Eli looked at her. "So are you." May shook her head slightly. "That's what they say." "And they don't understand it," Eli replied. For the first time in a long while, May didn't feel like she had to defend herself. She didn't feel like she had to prove anything. She just stood there. Back in town, people were starting to notice. Wild May was changing, but not in the way they expected. She wasn't quieter, she wasn't softer. She was still strong, still independent, but now she wasn't alone. And Eli? He didn't try to take her place. He simply stood beside her, just like he said he would. And slowly, Red Hollow began to see something they had never seen before. Not a wild girl who needed control, but a strong woman who had finally found someone who understood her. And that was something the town didn't know how to ignore anymore. Part 4. Redefining wild. By the time the next week began, Red Hollow was no longer the same quiet town it used to be. People still worked, still followed their daily routines, but now there was something new in the air, something people could not ignore. May Turner was no longer just Wild May, and Eli Carter was no longer just a stranger. Together, they had become something the town had never seen before. It started with a problem. The old water system near the edge of town had begun to fail. The wooden channel that carried water to nearby homes was cracked, and the flow had slowed to a weak stream. Without water, the town would struggle. The townspeople gathered, talking over each other, unsure of what to do. "This needs fixing fast. It's too much work. We don't have the right tools." Everyone had something to say, but no one stepped forward. May stood at a distance, watching. This was the same town that had judged her, avoided her, and called her wild like it was something wrong. She had no reason to help. But still, she didn't walk away. Eli stood among the crowd, listening quietly. After a moment, he spoke. "We can fix it." The voices slowed. One man shook his head. "It's not that simple." Eli nodded. "It's not, but it's possible." "Who's going to lead it?" another asked. There was silence. Then, slowly, Eli looked toward May. He didn't call her out loudly. He didn't push her. He just looked. May noticed. For a second, she felt that old feeling, the one that told her to turn away, to stay out of it. But something inside her had changed. She took a step forward. "I'll take a look," she said. The crowd went quiet. Some people looked surprised, others unsure, but no one stopped her. May walked toward the broken channel, kneeling down to examine it. She ran her hand along the wood, checking the cracks, the weak points. "It's not gone," she said after a moment. "Just needs work." "You can fix it?" someone asked. May stood up. "Not alone." There was another pause. Then Eli stepped beside her. "You won't be," he said. That was all it took. Slowly, others began to step forward. "I can bring tools," one man said. "I've got extra wood," another added. "I'll help carry," a woman offered. For the first time in a long time, the town was not just talking. They were moving. May didn't give long speeches. That wasn't her way. She gave clear instructions. "Support that side. Cut this piece shorter. Don't rush it. It won't hold." Her voice was steady, strong, confident, and people listened. Not because they had to, but because they trusted her. Eli worked beside her the entire time. He didn't take control. He didn't speak over her. He supported where needed, guided when asked, and let May lead in her own way. At one point, a man struggled to fit a wooden beam. Eli stepped in, adjusting it slightly. "Try it like this." The man nodded. "That works." May noticed. Eli didn't try to take credit. He just helped. Hours passed. The sun moved slowly across the sky, and the work continued. Piece by piece, the broken channel began to take shape again. The town worked together, something it had not done in a long time. And at the center of it all, May stood tall. Not as someone wild, but as someone capable. As the final piece was set into place, the water began to flow again. At first, it was slow, then stronger. Clear water moved through the channel, steady and smooth. The town let out a quiet cheer. "It's working! We did it!" People smiled. Some even laughed. May stepped back, wiping her hands. For a moment, she just watched. This was new. Not the work, she had always worked, but this feeling. Being part of something. Eli walked over to her. "You did good," he said. May shook her head slightly. "We did." Eli smiled. "Yeah, we did." The townspeople gathered nearby. One of them spoke, a little unsure. "May, thank you." She looked at them. These were the same people who had once whispered behind her back, but now their voices were different, honest, respectful. May nodded once. It needed doing. That was all she said, but it was enough. As the crowd slowly began to leave, the sun started to set, painting the sky in warm colors. May stood near the repaired channel, watching the water flow. Eli stood beside her. "You know," he said, "they won't call you the same thing anymore." May looked at him. "You think so?" Eli nodded. "Yeah." She turned her gaze back to the water. "They still might," she said. "Maybe," Eli replied, "but it won't mean the same thing." May thought about that. All her life, the word wild had been used like something negative, something to fix, something to control. But now, maybe it meant something else, something strong, something free. She took a slow breath. "Doesn't matter what they call me," she said. Eli looked at her. "No?" May gave a small, real smile this time. "I know who I am." Eli nodded. "That's enough." The wind moved softly through the land. The town of Red Hollow stood behind them, no longer the same as before. And ahead of them, the open land stretched wide and free. May Turner was still wild, but now the word carried respect. And Eli Carter? He never tried to change her. He simply stood beside her, right where he always said he would be. And together, they rode forward. Not as people who fixed each other, but as two who understood. And that made all the difference.